Spare a halfpenny, please.
Starting out the season, just putting his hand out to give me more. I need more. We may never know the consequences of Mexican cuisine on Jake Haypenny Hughes' digestive system.
The flashbacks, the all of the surgeries, the reinforcings of his wrists, they like flash before his eyes right at that moment of instantaneous impact, and his wrist just... It is just radio silence from Pascal. Like, the only thing I could think of... That's Pascal's native, actually his home language.
Hola, fanáticos de las carreras eléctricas. Mi nombre es Dallas y bienvenido a Circuit Breakers, un podcast de Fórmula E. Me acompaña mi conanfitrión Taylor. ¿Qué pasa, Taylor?
Me gusta el E-Prix de Circuit de Mexico. Viva la Fórmula E!
Viva la Formula E! So we're here in this episode to discuss round one of the 2024 Formula E season, which, if you didn't catch on with the, I would say, pristine Spanish accents, it was in Mexico City, arguably a cornerstone track in this series, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's consistently been a great starting point for the season to just figure out where the cars are at, and more importantly, to start digging into the pecking order. Dallas, I don't know about you. Did you take Spanish when you were in school?
I did take Spanish. I took 2 years of Spanish, and I was probably a percentage point away in both of those years from not graduating high school.
Yeah.
So,
muy bueno. Yeah, I think that was the most Spanish that I have spoken. Like, even when I was in Mexico, I have not spoken that much Spanish. I would just kind of like nod in the direction of someone and be like, "See," because I've never taken Spanish before, so. Second languages are not my key point.
No, I will say this. I learned more Spanish working at a car dealership with Hispanic coworkers than 2 years of Spanish formally in school. So let's get into this race, because by the time this episode has come out, we're a little removed from this race in real time. So let's start out with the quali. What was going down in quali?
Yeah, qualifying, I think, was just a reminder of how good the Porsches are on this circuit, where it looked like Pascal, like our favorite AI, like he came in, the wizards over at the Porsche garage managed to get the installer for qualifying really locked in on Pascal on his operating system before he got sent out on track. So yeah, the Wearline AI.exe installer showed up, and I think it was a very clear outcome. But we also had Count Buemi in that final duel with him that was starting to look a little hairy.
Yeah, and it's interesting with the second year of Gen 3, but first race of the season. You can't really gauge too much on the results of qualifying or even this race on where everyone's going to be at the end of the season. But working out the kinks, and yeah, it looks like Pascal got that installer nice and good, because I mean he's had success at this track before. Last year P2, the year before that P1, and then Buemi, I don't know, he just is freshly rested in his
they pulled him out of his tomb.
Vampire coffin.
The ship that brought his coffin full of his home soil across the Bering Sea to set up in Mexico City seemed to get everything right. You know, he was undisrupted throughout his slumber of the off season. But it seemed like there was a good fight. I think the biggest thing that I noticed from both qualifying and as we'll get into it is the race, is that the the Jaguar powertrains have showed up. Like, they're definitely here to play this season, which I think we predicted they were going to be pretty well coming into this, like, you know, with the hands of Nick Cassidy and Mitch Evans, and Mitch Evans being a consistently strong qualifier. It was pretty clear that there was going to be a battle within the Jaguar garage and the sister team, and I think it just showed up and just proved everything that we were imagining right in this first qualifying session. Also, Dallas, I don't know about you, but the qualifying sessions in Formula E are like actually fun to watch. Whether it is even just like your race replays or everything, I find myself waking up to watch them like every single week that they're racing. It's awesome. The duels are just like, that's the moment where you are actually sitting there praying and putting down bets on each of those drivers that are going to do that single lap shootout.
Well, it's funny too. Two parts of these duels is, one, they have the green screen of each driver where they look attemptingly menacingly at their opponent, and they just awkwardly like.
Yeah, it's almost like they're doing a meet cute, right? Like they're on the subway and they're doing a meet cute where they look at each other and it's like, I'm gonna fuck you later.
You just go in for a little kiss. But the other thing too is like the prediction. They'll throw up 55% for this driver, 45% for this driver, and it's like, where are you getting this from? Because it's a toss-up.
They're getting it.
It's a toss-up. You're just making up
global
a number.
Numbers. That's it. So the track being the Autodromo Hernandez Rodriguez, historic.
Oh,
and similar circuits to the one that they race for F1, but it's a short circuit comparatively to the one that they race in F1. This is a pretty high speed, prepared track circuit. Though it is a street circuit because of the walls and barriers and everything, it is a prepared racing. It's an Autodromo. They're racing the short track, and this is also, I think, an important thing to talk about earlier. This year, it seems like they're going to be probably providing more power per race to each circuit. There was a lot of complaints about like the Peloton style racing last year and like the hyper energy conserving that was going on last year on the more flat out tracks, where like, everyone was driving slow on straights to try to save energy because they just did not get allotted the energy to complete the race competitively. So this was, I think, one of the first races where we had that coming clear in the race, is they had a little more energy than most people expected would be the case. But maybe let's talk about it, because the last couple years it has been just a Porsche slaughterhouse. Like, for some reason, those Porsches, no matter what generation or season they're in, they are always either competitive all the way through the grid or a front runner from lights to flag, uncontested. And it's that's exactly what we got this race. It seemed like Pascal didn't even have to really break a sweat. They had it locked in from lights to flag, with a couple of small battles with Buemi, but it seemed like they always had the upper hand, and it was like Buemi had to work way harder to try to make those positions stick than Pascal even had to consider.
Well, I have a question about the energy, even in this battle, and then just so far, like with this race this season, trying to go away from the cycling mentality. And it's a novice question because I'm still getting into the sport, but the capacity of the batteries, I know it can be manipulated. And I also know that, when the energy runs out in a race, like say a driver is at 0 when it finishes, there's still like a reserve so they can still drive back to the pits. So are they just changing the capacity, like the rules per track, like each car gets 100 kilowatt hours of energy to dispense throughout the
Correct.
race? Probably more than that, but is that just, a line of code? They just hit the hit a keystroke and then it unlocks more of the physical battery that's in
Yeah,
each
I believe
car?
so. I believe that it's just like you have this much energy allocated to the race from start to finish. And the batteries themselves, I believe, carry a higher capacity than that to make it through a race. But they also determine that based on like the number of laps that will be done from the length of the race. So the length of the races is typically organized and predestined based on the length of the circuit. So how many laps goes into that will be kind of also organized around how do we keep this race within that 45-minute, hour-long window that Formula E consistently manages to succeed at doing. Because as we learned last year, anytime there is a red flag or something happens, whatever coverage we're getting in the States just cuts. Like I think back to that that New York race, I believe year before the year before last, that first season we did it, where they had that race in New York and there was just that heavy torrential downpour and every driver just started like crashing. And it was towards that, the like last 2 or 3 laps of the race. And right as that stuff was happening, as like CBS Sports or whoever was covering the broadcast, CBS Sports.
No, it was CBS.
Yeah, they just cut it. They just are like, well, we ran out of time. I remember specifically, well, we ran out of time. Cut, and we couldn't figure out what happened with the race after that. Yeah. It was insane.
Well, it was London. It was London last year too. The final round in the rain. Bunch of yellow flags, bunch of red flags, and it's like, well, time's up. Time for pickleball. We're going to show you. We're going to flip on over to pickleball and show you that.
To a competitive competitive like ski mobile motocross, like snowmobile. I remember one time they cut to a snowmobile supercross track where it was just like a bunch of like Canadians on a BMX track racing snowmobiles. And I'll be honest, I watched that for like 10 minutes because of what they did. I was like, this is a punishment I deserve for living in the United States, I suppose. So thank God for the Roku purchase.
Yeah.
Never have I felt more confident in my ability to watch Formula E and to also have it be tied to a $30 Roku purchase for the rest of my life.
I am curious to the international crowd of viewers and listeners, because we deal with the pain in the US, or at least up until the Roku era that has just begun. Wherever you're at in the world, let us know how you watch it. And do you run into any headaches of, we're going to cut to commercial? I would guess not, but I could be wrong. So leave it in the comments, do all that stuff.
My heart goes out to you all in the UK with the TNT Sports bullshit that's going on. I deeply apologize for your inability to experience Formula E without a absolutely absurd paywall. This is the first time we've been able to watch it without any sort of, like, we didn't know where we were going to watch it every single year. So we are so sorry that you have been dragged down to where we were prior to our Roku purchase.
Standing in solidarity. With the TNT Sports. I
remember we even considered getting a VPN. I remember I considered getting a VPN so that I could just have the YouTube stream from another country, because it was just dude, the CBS Sports coverage was so hard. It was so hard to hear.
We've talked about it before, and thank God we don't have to talk about it anymore. But yes, it was 2 commentators that have had a pretty illustrious career in motorsport commentary, but they pissed someone off, and so they got reassigned to Formula E, and they were just there because their contract said that they had to do that. And I think because it was coming out of COVID, I think they were just sitting in a room at the US CBS, main station in New York or wherever, just watching it on a monitor and be like, hey, did you hear 300 kilowatts? That's equivalent to 400 some horsepower.
410 brake horsepower. And they must use this energy across an entire race distance.
And we're hearing that for the 5th time halfway through the race because they have nothing notable or worthwhile.
Looks like John Eric Verne is taking attack mode. Every driver required to take attack mode twice during a race provides 30 extra kilowatt hours of energy to the vehicle, but must be taken off the racing line. At this point, we're already 3 turns through and there's been 2 wrecks, and they're finishing their sentence for the 6th time about attack mode.
They ran out of things to say, and it's like, we'll be right back. And it's at like the precipice moment of the race.
Yeah. And then we just have some like men's prostate medication commercial that
American
just like
pharmaceutical
American
advertising.
pharmaceuticals. You know, the young gay couple finally with HIV medication, and it's just like I want to know what market research was giving them the the guys to sit down and just funnel American pharmaceutical commercials directly into our racing stream, but it was endless.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And then we'd come back to a safety car having no idea how we got there, and then go back to ads. But we don't have to deal with it anymore. All right, let's get back to Mexico. You were saying that this was kind of a boring race because of that. There wasn't a whole lot of moves. And would you attribute that to just the speed? It's just a quick track, and it's just off and running?
Yeah. So there's only a couple of main turns that are available to do those critical overtake maneuvers. But also, this was a flat out race. And what happens when you have a flat out race where you have a surplus of energy, it just makes it, there's less required conservation for overtaking. And that slipstring effect is just not going to have the same bid as far as what is capable of being done. I also think that just like coming back to this season, we're seeing a lot more experience from the drivers who know not to take critical risks leading off in the season to just try to establish a baseline and stay competitive. So that being said, we did see the Porsche of Pascal just stretch its legs. It felt like it was almost untouchable. With no matter how much Buemi was really putting pressure on, like Pascal, even in the front of the pack, punching that hole in the air for everyone else, was just, it seemed had it completely confidently taken on. I don't know how many like sims they ran for Pascal, to like how many hours of simulation they put Pascal's AI through for this race, but it seems like it's just been consistently going with each new generation of the Pascal.exes they've been producing for Mexico City. So we'll just have to see where this goes.
Yeah, and I think it might be a little, I wouldn't call it a cheat because it's not in the rules yet, but you have to think because Pascal is operating, essentially in the metaverse. One session in the simulator for a regular original human driver, it takes the time to run that in the sim. For an AI, you could do 100 sims in that same amount of time. And yeah, I think we did see that in Mexico. Now, attributing to the speed beyond just the software of the driver, what about the liveries for these cars? What was your take on that?
Well, we got a first look at, I think, maybe one of the most bizarre. Porsche is very, very brand conscious with the way that they set up their car. They're not doing anything like fun or flashy with their vehicles. Did you see the one-off livery that Porsche put together for Mexico City, Dallas? Did you notice it when you first saw the cars going, like hitting the track?
I did not. You actually sent this to me, and I'm pulling it up right now so I can throw it up.
Yeah, so Porsche showed up with a one-off livery, Dallas. Have you checked out this livery yet?
I have, yes.
Did you notice it when
pretty minimalistic?
Did you notice it when they showed up on track with it? Because I noticed it right out of the gate, and I was like, oh man, weird that they've chosen to brand their car like a men's razor. Like, did you feel like there's something weirdly sterile about this car, like right as it showed up on your screen?
It's incredibly sterile. It's fresh. It's simple. It's minimalistic. It's It's just German. It's straight to the point. We're here to win races, and you're going to look at our pretty purple colors.
Yeah.
And that's going to be it.
It's like a Gillette sponsored Porsche. It's a Gillette sponsored race car. Like if I were to see a commercial where like they're like Gillette was sitting down and showing like the clean lines and the precision engineering of a new razor, like I could imagine this car specifically like zipping around as like B-roll for that, to make the comparison of how finite they've engineered this. And then you sit there and you look at Pascal's little goddamn goatee that they machined onto his face, and it all comes together, you know?
The men's razor and grooming product makes sense because you know how AI generation, as it stands right now, they can't seem to get hands down. Always adds like
a thumb, yeah, or like the fingers just
phalange
in the wrong spaces, yeah.
So I think with that, with Pascal.exe, is they need to come up with a product that his hands can grasp, because it just needs to focus on holding on to a wheel and turning. You don't have those complex finger movements, joints, and all that. So if they have just a gorilla grip razor that it can just do a few moves and line up, I think that you might be onto something with this livery.
Yeah, I think that, but by the end of the season, we're either going to see Antonio in like a clinically depressed state with just like full, because of the amount of neglect he's received from the team. Like he's just going to be like fully like mountain man. Like they take him from the race and they bring him into a dark, sterile room to just run simulations for questions and interviews for Pascal. White room with a 50-50 glass mirror where he's just like shackled down. Tell us, Pascal, how does it feel to be the first Porsche Formula E world champion? And then it's just Antonio trying to recite as many lines in as charismatic a way possible. Every time he starts to struggle, they zap him. Who knows?
Well, here's the thing. Antonio is going to learn the hard way that a human being, a organic biologic, cannot keep up with an AI. And so, he might be just withered away at the end of the season.
I want to see Antonio get to that haggard state. Do you think
just can hardly get in the car?
Speaking of, like, Antonio's race did not start out particularly well. He had contact with who is it? Nico Mueller. Started at the back of the pack.
Yeah, it was
started at the back of the pack, which was hard to see, considering it's a new season. He's had some more time to learn the new car, but started in 16th position. Made contact with Nico Mueller, DNF. And apparently that contact that he had is gonna provide a grid place penalty for his first race in Diria. So he's starting his season out just as far back as you could really suspect a world champion driver in a top performing team to start.
Do you think that is strategically manufactured? Have your human driver suffer on the first race and then going into the second race to make the AI look better?
I think that might be it. But also Pascal did that all on his own this weekend. So let's get into some of the other antics that we saw on track, because I don't know about you, Dallas, but this race was kind of like grasping at straws. Like it was a very formulaic race. We did get some safety cars. But we had kind of a bit of a mess all the way through. Just seeing positions kind of locked in, overtaking really hard to manage. Andretti, Jake Dennis, and Normanado closed out the back of the grid with the 9th and 10th slot position. So they're off to a slower start than we would have suspected. But you know what? Our good friend Heypenny Hughes made his way right into a firm 7th, only really dropping one position. The Nissan powertrain kind of starting out showing some success. And Jake Hughes last year did a pretty fantastic job as well. So maybe he's just a Mexico City elite.
Spare a halfpenny, please.
Starting out the season, just putting his hand out to give me more. I need more. What's up, you E-heads? It's that time of the show for you to get off of the racing line and into attack mode to give this show a boost. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like this episode and subscribe to the channel. And if you're listening on an audio platform, head on over to YouTube at Circuit Breakers Pod and do the very same thing. It gives us that algorithmic boost that really gets our wheels turning. So thank you. And back to the show. I'll take the points, thank you. I'm looking for pole, but I'll take the points.
Oh God, yeah. I don't know if he's ready for I would suspect that the heat, and like, what do you think? What do you think Heypenny Hughes' first experience with a spicy Mexican dish is?
Well, I don't want to directly shit on British cuisine because I've never been there. I've never had like authentic. I have been told and I've heard that it's kind of dull, it's kind of bland. So then you throw Heypenny Hughes, who's used to eating a white bread sandwich outside of the coal mines, into this bursting, flavorful culture of Mexican cuisine.
I have a thought. Do you think that his performances in Mexico are strictly related to the fact that he is trying to finish a race to take a shit? Like he's got yes, absolute Montezuma's revenge fighting its way through his intestines, and the only way to conquer that is to get through these laps as fast as possible.
Yes, 100%, because I have been there, not on a track racing, but on public roads racing for my life, so I don't shit in the car. And so it does cause you to drive faster. It does cause you to take some calculated risks, but he didn't fuck it into a wall or anything. He finished the race and then got out of the car like, toilet, or what are the Brits called? Loo, I need the loo. Where's the loo? And he's running with little tiny steps so he doesn't breach. Perhaps, yeah. He just like, I would like to try your finest taco. And then they give it to him, and it has maybe just a dash of, jalapenos, maybe a little habanero extract just for the flavor, because I'm sure that the chefs in Mexico were briefed on this grid. A lot of them, spice might be, a new kind of cautious thing for them. And so they told these Mexican cuisine chefs, like, hey, ease up a little bit, like add a little bit of, the flavor of your country to it. But we don't want to fuck these drivers up. Oh, God,
no. They sat down. They said, oh, we got some British boys on the way in. I think it's about time we show them just what flavor is. What was it, like midway through the race? We had Jake have a slight panic attack, probably still related to his bowels, about to give up. But he's like, was he blacking out, or was his screen going black? Like, what was
Yeah, so it's hard to tell when in the race it occurred, because this was found on the team radio video from Mexico, which arguably is just as good as watching any parts of the race, qualifying the race itself. It's the team radio videos that come out after these races. And yeah, there was a little bit of Heypenny Hughes here.
My dash has gone black. My dash has gone black. Oh, it's back.
So at some point in the race, he is just whipping down the track, and he
sounds so sweaty. Like he's in such a state of panic. Like his the desperation for my dash has gone black. My dash has gone black.
Yeah, and I think what didn't make the team radio cut is he went on, was like, "Oh, you think we could come in box? I got squirts. And they told him, like, Jake, you're gonna have to hold it. And so he's driving, and his vision just starts to blacken. And I think psychologically, he just said that it was his dash, like the screen on his wheel.
He's hallucinating. Anything that could potentially get him to DNF from the race as a technical issue. I think the screen's black. I think it's black. I might need to take it into the pits.
The car's not working properly. Not my body at all.
Okay,
it's
no,
the car.
it's back.
It's black. Yeah, and that's if you've ever had diarrhea, you know that it can come in waves, and so I would imagine that in this soundbite,
my dash has gone black.
He has it. My dash is black. It's black. Like he is like DEFCON 5 about to just squirt, and then it slowly or quickly rather fades away.
Oh, it's back.
Oh, it's back. We're good. Continue on to the race.
Yeah. Do you think that was his lower intestine able to like readjust everything back into place as it was trying to fight its way out?
Yeah, I think it's an ebb and flow with the G forces going around corners where one turn it's going to throw those intestines one way that is unfavorable, and then the other it just kind of adjusts and kind of keeps things up. We may never know the consequences of Mexican cuisine on Jake Haypenny Hughes's digestive system. But what we do know is Robin Frijns, aka the glass wrists. He had an incident
with the glass wrist. I don't know about you, but when I saw this happen, I immediately watched like the cockpit view just to see how fast he sucks his hands back in. He was like a turtle. He at like literally inches from impact, he sucked those wrists back into his body for the crash. It was like the flashbacks, all of the surgeries. The reinforcings of his wrists, they like flash before his eyes right at that moment of instantaneous impact, and his wrist just crashed, finished.
It's like, you know how like it's a natural reaction when you fall down, you put your hand out to try and brace yourself, and a lot of the times it's too much force and you break your arm or whatever. I think because his recovery took a long time. It was supposedly a real nasty wrist injury last year.
Like 6 races. And he invited his surgeon. He gave his surgeon that fixed his wrist last year at the race like a full press pass to come into this. Like, he kept him in the wings just in case. And he almost had to just ring him up like on the spot. And now what I also thought was really funny in this is, like, firstly, I think every single person was just, like, eyes laser focused on his steering wheel to see if that wrist turns into a pretzel again.
See if there was a hand still attached but severed.
But also, we had Edo Mortara say one of the funniest out of context lines in response to Robin Frijns crashing untouched in front of him. Like,
I did not touch him. Just to be clear, I did not touch him.
Like, he's gonna have Chris Hansen show it. Like, he's got Chris Hansen right outside his front door. We have the pedo Edo context, but I thought it was fantastic to see how dedicated he was to making sure everyone knows I did not potentially break his wrist, as if it was going to be providing him like 7 years bad luck. Like, I just want everyone to know I didn't touch him. It wasn't me. If he breaks his wrist, it's not my luck. It's not my bad luck. I didn't do this to him. Because
my guess is that they had a briefing of all the drivers before this race, before the beginning of the season. They sat everyone down. They kind of went through everything, and then they made a very serious announcement to everyone except Robin, like the leader of the FIA with the Formula E division goes, "Robin, come up here." And Robin kind of like shyly walks to the front of the group and just stands there. And the guy just points at him. He's like, "If anyone fucks up this guy's wrist, it's your ass." And then Edo had to be quick with it.
I did not touch him. Just to be clear,
I did not touch him. I didn't do it.
Was was not me.
He said that he said he was 18. I did not touch him.
Now, what is interesting in watching the replay of this incident is it almost looked like Frijns, because he crashed by himself. It was true. Edo did not touch him.
He just got on a dirty section of the track, I think. But
he got on the dirty section trying to get back on the racing line. It almost looked like those hyper confident Mustang drivers that want to show off to everyone else on the road when no one asked for it, to just rear wheel drive, just throw the back end out and do something cool, which 99 times out of 100 that never happens. They just yeet their Mustang into a wall. So that's what it looked like. And so if anything, it was Edo calling his insurance company like, hey, I did not touch him.
I swear to God, I don't know what kind of insurance Robin has on that wrist, but I am telling you right now, I didn't touch him. I have video proof. Okay, so moving on. We had
he is fine, by the way.
He's fine. He no wrist injuries. He made it through just fine. An unfortunate DNF and another reason for him to come back to try to redeem himself next year in Mexico City. But let's move on to some of the back of the grid situations that we had. Degrassi, starting his season out at Apt, just sounds pissed off. Like, more pissed off than I've ever heard Degrassi radio. He has always been a little, like, edgy, a little fiery on the radio. But, man, he had a technical issue with his car, like, early in the race, where he couldn't get it put into the right settings window. There's a failure or something like that, and he's screaming. He's just, like, screaming at the team about the radio not working. And then Mueller's entire rear wing assembly comes off his car, and they get him through the finishing of the race. But, like, good God, what is going on with that Apt Cooper team? Like, there's no way they're feeling good about some of the decisions and transitions that have happened in that team leading into the season now.
No, but I think the Mueller with the wing popping off like a lizard sheds its tail to get away from predators, I think that was from the incident with Antonio Human DaCosta.
With DaCosta, yeah, absolutely. But also, with the rear wing, Mueller still managed to beat Dan Ticktum. What the hell is going on with Danny? We had Sergio not even start because of a failure to the car pre-race, but Dan, just back of the line.
Don't blame him. I know that's where he's lived for the entirety of his Formula E career since I started watching with the Neos and then now with ERT. We got some insight that this is not his fault. It's not him. He is being told, he's getting team orders to slow the fuck down when he's already at the back of the grid, because on the last lap, and this is a recurring theme. This isn't just, the first race of this season. This has happened in previous seasons where it gets to the end of the race and the Neo/ERT boys still have 5, 6, 7% of energy.
What was he, like 5% energy the last lap? But telling him to say
he had 5% on the last lap and was just puttering along. And I think, I like to praise the Neos and the ERTs. They're trying their best. That it was just like, well, he's just trying to show the true conservative power of the Gen 3 car. But then, again, watching the team radio videos, it's not Dan's fault. It's whatever slapdicks are recalling shots in the garage, because he came on and he said,
call my mom.
I'm not saving
Call my
anymore,
mom.
mate.
I'm not saving.
I'd rather just run out. I'm not saving any more than this. I'm barely moving.
Barely moving. They're telling him, Dan, slow down. You're using a lot of energy. He's like, I'm not moved. I'm just going to run out. Fuck it. You guys can come pick me up. I'm just going to run out. So it's not Dan Ticktum's fault. He finished, get this, he finished a minute 14 seconds behind Pascal.exe.
Oh my God.
A full lap if the race was still going on.
Oh my God, man.
Pascal finishes, that's the race, and then Dan Ticktum, a lap later, essentially, comes through, and I can imagine he wasn't very happy.
A minute?
1 minute.
Holy hell.
Hey, okay, for reference, Nick Cassidy, nice boy Nick, got the fastest lap. He did that in 1:14.746. Dan Ticktum finished the race in 1:14.758. So if you were to have a ghost car of nice guy Nick Cassidy driving along on Dan Ticktum's last race, he still would have beat him. And that's just to finish the race. So I can imagine that Dan Ticktum was probably pretty pissed. What I can't imagine, because I don't know, is Pascal.exe's his feelings at the end of the race. What happened with that?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you all had the same moment where when, again, this is the things that I love about Formula E is like what you expect to happen in a standard broadcast just never seems to go their way. Like whenever they're trying to do the most like professional responses, you know, we had Charoom Jandak like call to Pascal as he's finishing the race. He's opening up that like victory lap, you know, to ask him like, how's it feel to win the first race of the Formula season? And it is just radio silence from Pascal. Like the only thing I could think of is that he's got the dial up going. He hasn't booted up. He hasn't booted up his personality wizard yet. The installer was delayed. And then, but the thing that I thought was the funniest too is that they play it off. They're like, "Oh, it must have some sort of radio difficulty," and then you hear like Pascal like calling to his team, like "Great job" and all that stuff. And then they try it again, and it's just the same. It's just like it's almost like they had like a pre-recorded Pascal message. They heard that they like caught him uninstalled or like without his personality booted up yet.
Interface.
Yeah, his personality interface booted up, and they click like a radio sample of, "Let's go, boys! Great job to you all." That's Pascal's native, actually his home language. I think that what we were able to see in this race, though, was a great indicator that the field has, in a lot of ways, bunched up. We had a pretty strong ratio of top performers finding their way through the field, but all in all, like this is not an overtake heavy race. I'm really excited to see how things continue to go through. This was a great indicator that there's going to be a lot of golds going to Porsche throughout the season, but I do think that those Jaguars are going to be the most consistent upper midfield scoring teams, as we see here with Buemi and Cassidy. So any final thoughts, Dallas?
I just want to say really one thing is we can't judge anything. We still have 15 more races to go. Whatever happened in this race shouldn't be a clear indicator of anything aside from ERT is stupid and they want to conserve energy that they need, and Pascal is an AI, and also the wrist man, the glass wrist. They're still okay.
Those are $1 million wrists, man. I'm telling you, those are $1 million wrists. Do not. It is going to be like every single piece of contact that happens from this point on with Robin, I am going to be just eyes glued to those wrists.
Closing thoughts on Mexico. If you have an aversion to spice and Mexican cuisine, just eat it. Just don't get in a car and drive because you will black out. That'll do it for this episode. And go check out the Diria one as well as the other episodes that are already out as we continue to prepare for Sao Paulo. But if you're listening to these in order, check out the Diria episode.
It is.
And keep it right here.
Yeah, it is so good to be back in racing, Dallas. It's so good to have this season going again. Thanks again for listening, everyone. Go ahead and check out our socials down below. Also, shout outs to Tricky. It's Tricky on SoundCloud for helping us produce our intro and close out anthem. As always, everyone, thank you again.
See you next time.